Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into a book that, well, it's changed how a lot of people think about leadership, about business, even about what drives them personally. It's Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
It really has had a huge impact. And Sinek's basic question is, why are some people, some organizations, just so much more innovative, influential? Why do they command this incredible loyalty?
While others seem to be doing similar things but just don't connect in the same way.
Exactly. And his big idea, the one that kicks everything off, is that the really inspiring ones, they don't just focus on what they do or how they do it.
They start somewhere else entirely.
They start with WHY.
That core purpose, right? The belief behind it all.
Absolutely. It's their cause, their fundamental belief system.
Hmm.
And that's what we want to unpack in this deep dive. We'll use the key ideas from Sinek's work as our roadmap.
So, figuring out what starting with the BHY actually looks like, how it inspires people, and why it's so different from just, well, manipulating people into action.
Right. It's ultimately about understanding how that deep sense of trust gets built,
Yeah.
the kind that leads to real lasting success.
Okay, let's jump right in. The core concept Sinek uses is something he calls the golden circle. Can you paint a picture of that for us?
Sure. Imagine like a target. 3 circles, one inside the other.
Okay.
The outermost circle is the what. This is the easiest part. Every single organization, every person knows what they do.
Their products, their services, their job title, the obvious stuff.
Precisely. It's tangible, easy to identify.
Got it. So moving inwards.
The next circle is the HOW. Now, some organizations know their HOW. This is about what makes them different or special.
Their unique selling proposition, maybe? A proprietary process?
Yeah, things like that. How they do what they do, maybe they focus on quality or service or a specific design philosophy. It differentiates them.
Okay, makes sense. What, then how tell you? So the bullseye.
That's the WHY. And this, Sinek says, is where it gets tricky. Very, very few people or organizations can clearly articulate WHY, they do what they do.
And he's very specific here. It's not about making money, right?
Definitely not. Profit is just a result. Always a result. The WHY is the purpose, the cause, the belief. It's the fundamental reason the organization exists beyond just making money. Why does it even matter?
Why get out of bed in the morning, essentially?
That's a good way to put it. And the crucial difference, Sinek points out, is in communication. Most communicate from the outside in.
Starting with what? We sell these great widgets.
Exactly. Then maybe they explain how. They're made with this special process. It's logical, it makes rational sense. Most marketing lives here.
But it doesn't necessarily inspire.
No. The truly inspiring leaders and organizations, they flip it. They communicate from the inside out. They start with WHY.
Here's what we believe.
Yes, here's our
Okay.
purpose. Then they explain how their actions and values bring that belief to life. And finally, the what their products, their services, serve as the proof of that belief.
Which leads to that really powerful statement Sinek makes. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
It's a game changer when you think about it. The what is just the tangible evidence that people can point to show what they believe.
Like with Apple, their WHY is something like, challenge the status quo, think differently.
Right. And their computers, their phones, those are just the whats. They're the proof of that belief. That's why we feel okay buying different kinds of products from them.
Whereas Dell, they make great computers, they're what was clear, but buying an MP3 player from them just felt weird.
Because their established WHY, even if implicit, was maybe more about efficiency and direct-to-consumer sales for computers. It didn't connect with the WHY people associated with music and personal expression back then. The what didn't match the perceived WY in that new context.
That feeling that it feels right or it feels weird, Sinek connects that directly to how we're influenced. He says there are basically 2 paths, manipulation or inspiration.
And let's be clear, manipulation here isn't always sinister. It just means using external factors to get a behavior. And, well, it's the default for most businesses.
Things like cutting prices, special promotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fear tactics appealing to our aspirations. Get rich quick or lose weight fast. Peer pressure, novelty. These are all manipulations.
Let's unpack those a bit. Price cuts, BOGOS rebates, they definitely work. Short term, you see a spike in sales.
For sure. But Sinek argues it trains customers. They become, as he puts it, cashback junkies. Think about the car industry. Like GM getting hooked on incentives. It boosts sales now, but can kill margins and loyalty later.
Right. People just wait for the next deal. And promotions, like the free toy or the limited time offer.
Same deal. Short-term bump, no lasting connection. The source even mentions slippage on rebates. Companies kind of banking on people not claiming the money. Doesn't exactly scream customer focus, does it?
No, it really doesn't. What about fear?
Well, fear is potent. Think public service ads about safety, or even business ads hinting at risks. Is your retirement safe? Protect your family. It grabs attention, creates urgency.
But not trust. It's pushing a button, not building a relationship.
Precisely. And aspirations, be your best self, achieve your dreams. Those messages appeal to our desires.
They can get you started, maybe? Like Mark Twain saying quitting smoking is easy. He'd done it hundreds of times.
Exactly. It motivates. But if the motivation isn't deeply rooted in your own WHY, it often fizzles out. True for consumers, true in B2B selling too.
Peer pressure. Everyone's doing it. Or experts agree. That taps into our social nature, right? We trust the crowd sometimes.
Or we trust the celebrity endorsing the product. But Sinek's point is, unless that celebrity genuinely embodies the company's WHY, it's just another form of aspiration appeal or a fancy how-it. It doesn't build belief.
And the last one, novelty. The newest feature, the coolest design.
Like the Motorola RAZR back in the day. Super thin, very cool, drove sales for a while.
But novelty wears off fast, and if everyone just keeps adding features...
You end up with the toothpaste aisle, right?
Yeah.
A million choices, total confusion. Sinek contrasts that with real innovation, like the iPhone, which wasn't just about new features. It changed how the whole industry worked, driven by Apple's deeper WHY.
So summing up manipulations, they work for transactions. One-off sales, maybe repeat buys based on habit or deals.
But they don't build loyalty, not the deep emotional kind. They cost more over time, create stress, and actually prevent the formation of trust. It's a short-term game.
Okay, so what's the alternative? Inspiration.
Inspiration is totally different. It's about motivating people from the inside, connecting with their own values, their own beliefs.
So it's not pushing buttons, it's sparking something within them.
Exactly. And when people are inspired, they're far less susceptible to those external manipulations. They act because they want to, because it aligns with who they are.
This is where you see that incredible loyalty emerge, people willing to go the extra mile.
Think Apple fans queuing for hours, or Harley-Davidson owners getting tattoos. That's not rational. It's tribal. It's belonging.
It's proof they believe in the WHY behind the brand.
Or that amazing story about Southwest Airlines customers after the oil crisis, sending in checks unsolicited. Why? Because they felt like part of the Southwest family, sharing that underdog belief. It wasn't about the price anymore. It was, we're in this together.
That feeling, it's powerful. And Sinek links this difference to how our brains work. Rational versus gut feeling.
Pretty much. When companies just talk what and how, we use our neocortex, the rational part. We analyze facts, compare features, it takes effort, feels uncertain, and makes us vulnerable to manipulation.
But when something just feels right...
That's your limbic brain, Sinek suggests. It's responsible for feelings, trust, loyalty, decision-making. It's powerful. It drives behavior.
But it doesn't control language.
Exactly. So when you make a gut decision based on WHY, it's hard to explain rationally. You might say, I don't know, it just felt right. And then you rationalize it using the whats and HOWs.
Which is why asking people why they bought something in market research often gets you the rationalization, not the real emotional driver.
Right, like the laundry detergent example. People said, white or whites? I don't know, what? But the deeper Why was the feeling of care, of pride, when they saw the results. Communicating the WHY taps directly into that feeling, that limbic brain.
Okay, so starting with WHY taps into that deeper level. But just knowing your WHY isn't enough, is it? Sinek talks about needing balance.
Absolutely. The golden circle needs integrity. He outlines 3 key elements: clarity of WHY, discipline of HW, and consistency of what.
Clarity of WHY, that seems obvious. You need to actually know what you believe in.
You have to.
Yeah.
If people buy WHY, you do it, and you don't know your WHY, how can they? The leader, the vision, has to be crystal clear.
Then discipline of Hey W. This isn't just saying you have values.
No, it's living them. Your HOWs are your values and principles in action. Disciplined, consistent actions that bring the WHY to life. Southwest's WHY was being the champion for the common man. Their HOWs included being cheap, yes, but also being fun, rebellious. Putting flight attendants in hot pants back then wasn't just quirky. It was a disciplined expression of their anti-establishment WHY.
So the HOWs are the proof points in action, which leads to consistency of what?
Everything you do, your products, your marketing, your culture, who you hire, it all has to align. It has to consistently reflect your WHY and your HOWs. People see through inconsistency. Consistency builds authenticity.
And authenticity, Sinek argues, is the foundation of trust and relationships. You might have short-term success without it using manipulations.
But for lasting success, for innovation, for resilience, you need that authenticity that comes from a balanced golden circle. Clarity, discipline, consistency.
Which ties right into how trust actually emerges. It's not really logical, is it?
Not at all. It's a feeling. We trust people or organizations when we believe they're driven by something more than just self-interest, when we feel they're acting for the good of the group, aligned with a shared value or purpose.
Like trusting the local kid to babysit over a stranger with a better resume, maybe? It's about community, shared understanding.
That's a great analogy. It's about perceived values alignment. Sinek points to history showing that groups built on trust often advance faster than those based purely on individual skill.
He uses Continental Airlines under Gordon Bethune as a case study. Before Bethune, it sounds like a place totally lacking trust.
Oh yeah, employees felt mistreated. Management was literally locked away on a separate floor. Bethune came in and flipped the script. His core belief put employees first. Happy employees mean happy customers, which leads to happy shareholders. In that order.
So what did he do?
Radical stuff back then. Got rid of the executive floor security, open door policy. He actually went down and helped sling bags sometimes, showed he was part of the team.
And he focused them on something tangible.
On-time performance. Continental was dead last. It was costing them a fortune. He told employees if the airline ranked in the top 5 for on-time performance in a given month, every single employee would get a $65 bonus.
Not just pilots or managers. Everyone.
Everyone. And crucially, it wasn't just folded into their paycheck. It was a separate check, a tangible symbol of, we did this together. It cost millions in bonuses initially, but they saved far more by actually being on time. It linked a what on-time stats directly to a shared WHY. Succeeding together, employees matter.
That's powerful. And Southwest, under Herb Kelleher, had a similar vibe, right? Employees first.
Absolutely. Kelleher was open about his WHY being the champion for the little guy, fighting the big, stuffy airlines. Employees felt like they were part of a crusade, a family. The loyalty wasn't just about cheap fares. It was about that shared belief.
Like the story of the executive interviewing with Kelleher and noticing the hole in his sock. It showed Kelleher was authentic, one of them.
Yeah, a Dunkin' Donuts guy, not a Starbucks guy, as the interviewee put it. That authenticity builds immense trust. It showed the WHY wasn't just marketing speak.
And then there's Shackleton's ad for the Antarctic trip, brutally honest about the danger.
Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, safe return doubtful.
He wasn't selling the what or the how W the ship. He was selling the WHY, the ultimate challenge, appealing only to those who believed in facing the insurmountable. He hired for WHY for that mindset.
Because people who believe in the cause will give everything.
They work harder because they feel like they belong. Contrast that with Barings Bank and Nick Leeson, where the culture was all about individual gain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Motivated by money, bonuses, manipulation. There was no trust, no shared WHY. Leeson's actions happened because the culture enabled it. It wasn't a team. It was every man for himself. A culture built on trust produces great people consistently. A culture built on manipulation might attract individual stars, but it's fragile.
The military example with General Lori Robinson reinforces that. Her focus wasn't self-promotion.
No, her WIY was about service, leaving the organization better. The time to think of yourself is done. That fosters trust because people believe you're acting for the collective good. She focused on building a system where pilots trusted the mechanics, the trainers, each other, because they all shared that commitment to the larger mission.
Trust enables people to perform, to learn from mistakes, like the jumper story.
Right. That sense of shared belief, nurtured by trust, is where real passion comes from.
Okay, so if you have this inspiring WHY, how does it actually spread? How do you get from a few believers to a mass movement? Sinek brings in the law of diffusion of innovations.
Yeah, this concept explains how new ideas or products spread through a population. It's often shown as a bell curve.
Starting with the innovators.
Right. The first 2.5%, the real risk takers. Then come the early adopters, the next 13.5%. They're visionaries, comfortable with new ideas, rely on intuition.
Then the big chunk in the middle, the early majority and late majority, each about 34%.
These are the more pragmatic folks. They wait and see. And finally, the laggards, the last 16%, who are resistant to change.
And the critical point for mass adoption is crossing the chasm between the early adopters and the early majority.
Exactly. You can't really get mass market success until you cross that chasm. And Sinek's argument is crucial here. You don't cross it by targeting the majority directly.
Why not? Isn't that the biggest group?
It is, but they won't try something new until it's already been proven and adopted by people they trust, specifically the early adopters. So, to reach the majority, you must win over the early adopters first.
The ones who buy based on belief and intuition, not just features and price.
Precisely. They are the ones who will spread the word and influence the more cautious majority. Trying to sell a truly new idea directly to the majority with rational arguments, what's in HOWs, is usually futile and expensive.
Sinek uses TiVo as a prime example of getting this wrong. Great product, right? Revolutionary.
Totally. Had money, good timing, but it struggled initially. And the quote from their own spokesperson was telling, until people get their hands on it, they don't understand why they need this.
So they were focused on explaining the what and how, assuming rational evaluation.
Yes, they marketed the features, the technology. They were talking to the rational majority who weren't ready to listen yet because the early adopters hadn't paved the way.
Contrast that with the iPod. Apple came later,
But they nailed the WHY. Creative Technology had an MP3 player first, marketing it as 5 GB storage. That's a what? Apple came along and said, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
that's a benefit, a feeling, a WHY. It's about freedom, access.
Exactly. It tapped into the desire, the belief. Apple targeted the early adopters who cared about that feeling, who believed in what Apple stood for. They bought in, spread the word, and pulled the majority across the chasm.
The non-business example of Martin Luther King Jr. is incredibly powerful here, too. How did that march on Washington happen in '63?
No internet, no mass email, 250,000 people showed up. Sinek argues it wasn't just about Dr. King's ideas, the what's of civil rights. Many people had similar ideas.
But Dr. King articulated the WHY, the deep belief in equality, the need to challenge the status quo.
He gave voice to a feeling, a belief that was already stirring in people. People didn't show up for him. They showed up for themselves, for their belief in a different America, which he symbolized. He inspired the early adopters of the movement, who then brought their friends, their communities. It was a network effect driven by shared belief, tapping into that limbic brain.
So the WHY provides the spark, the early adopters carry the flame, and that lights the fire for the majority.
That's a good way to visualize it. And Sinek offers another visualization. The golden circle as a three-dimensional cone or megaphone.
Okay, how does that work?
Imagine the point of the cone, the very tip. That's the WHY. That's where the clarity comes from, usually the leader or the founding vision.
And the cone widens out from there.
Exactly. The next layer is the HOW, the values, the systems, the discipline that gives structure to the WHY. And the widest part, the mouth of the megaphone, is the products, services, marketing, all the tangible outputs. That's the consistency.
So the whole organization acts like a megaphone, amplifying the WHY out into the world through the HOWs and what's.
Right. But here's the key. If the point isn't clear, if the WHY is fuzzy, then the megaphone just makes noise. You can spend a lot on advertising, volume, but if the message lacks clarity of WHY, it won't resonate deeply or build loyalty.
Like that BCI example Sinek mentioned, loud ads, but no clear belief behind them.
People might buy when the ad runs, but there's no connection. Volume is easy. Consistency rooted in a clear WHY builds trust.
He uses Ron Bruder as an example of someone whose WHY is consistent, even as his what's changed dramatically.
Yeah, Bruder's WHY seems to be about challenging assumptions, finding alternative paths. He did it in insurance, then real estate, brownfield redevelopment, and now with the Education for Employment Foundation.
Helping youth in the Middle East find skills and opportunities.
It's a completely different what, but the same underlying WHY, showing people there's another way, empowering them. The foundation is a movement built on that shared belief. Bruder provides the WHY, but it's the local people who believe in it that make it work and scale.
But scaling, growing big, that often leads to problems, doesn't it? Sinek calls it the split.
Yes, this is a common challenge. As an organization grows, the founder, the original source of the WHY, often becomes detached from the daily operations, the what level.
You need managers, systems, the HOW types.
Exactly. You need skilled operational leaders,
Yeah.
COOs, CFOs, who are brilliant at building the structures, the discipline to scale the vision. They're essential, but they might not be the visionary WHY type themselves. Ideally, they are deeply inspired by the WHY.
And the employees doing the work are the what, interacting with the world.
Right. The split happens when that connection breaks. Either the founder leaves or More critically, the WHY isn't properly embedded into the HOWs, the culture, the systems, the hiring criteria.
So the organization keeps running, but something's lost.
The decision-making shifts. Instead of being guided by the WHY, by that gut feeling, it becomes purely rational, data-driven, focused only on the what's and HOWs, often just the measurable stuff like short-term profits.
That what gets measured gets done, Trav.
Right, the organization might still be loud, might grow, but the message becomes fuzzy, the passion fades. People are just doing jobs, not building that metaphorical cathedral anymore.
Apple, after Jobs left the first time, is the classic example. Scully was a HOW guy.
Brilliant manager, but didn't share the founder's WHY. The products became iterative, lost their spark. The company struggled until Jobs returned and reinfused the WHY.
Walmart, after Sam Walton, seems similar. His WHY was about people, service.
He built the what, the stores, to serve that WHY. After he died, the source suggests the WHY wasn't passed down effectively. The focus shifted purely to the how-what of low prices, losing the belief in service and community. They faced scandals, lawsuits, lost trust.
And the contrast with Costco is stark.
Jim Sinek, much like Walton, seemed to have a WHY rooted in believing in people, treating employees well. Wall Street might complain, but Sinek sees it as fundamental to long-term success and loyalty. Costco thrived because the WHY remained clear and drove the HOWs and what's.
Microsoft post-Gates, Starbucks when Schultz stepped back, similar patterns. It seems keeping the WHY alive during growth and succession is incredibly difficult.
It requires conscious effort to institutionalize the WHY through the HOWs. Sinek does mention examples like a debt collection agency focusing on respect, its WHY, and getting better results, or a construction company prioritizing work-life balance, its WHY, and seeing higher productivity. It shows you can manage the what's through the lens of WHY.
When that WHY is clear and consistent, the what's, even just a logo, can become really powerful symbols.
Absolutely. A logo is just a graphic until it stands for something people believe in. Then it becomes a symbol.
People use symbols to say something about themselves, right?
To signal their own beliefs.
Exactly. That's why the Harley-Davidson tattoo is so potent. It's not about the motorcycle specs. It's about embodying the values that logo represents, freedom, independence, whatever it is for that person. It's irrational loyalty to a symbol of belief.
And Apple's logo, their product design, their stores, they all act as consistent symbols of their Think Different WHY.
You see it, you feel it. You don't need to read their mission statement. Their what's are tangible proof of their WHY, communicated consistently. Okay, so how do you maintain that consistency, especially as you grow and face lots of choices? Sinek offers a practical filter, the celery test.
I love this one. It's so simple. Imagine you go to a networking event, or just life throws advice and opportunities at you. If you don't have a clear WHY.
You might grab anything that sounds good, like going to the supermarket hungry and without a list.
Exactly. You end up with, say, M&Ms, celery, rice milk, maybe some donuts. They all seem like a good idea at the time, but there's no coherence. It's just random stuff.
But if you do have a clear WHY, say, I only do things that are truly healthy for me.
Then you look at that same list of options. M&Ms, celery, rice milk, donuts, and the filter works instantly. Celery passes, rice milk maybe. M&Ms and donuts, definitely not.
You know immediately what fits and what doesn't. It simplifies decisions.
Hugely. It provides efficiency and ensures everything you choose reinforces your core belief. Now, does it mean you can never have the metaphorical chocolate cake?
No, sometimes you make exceptions.
Right. But if your WHY is clear, you know it's an exception. It's not part of your identity. Too many exceptions, though, and your WHY starts to get fuzzy for you and for others.
And the real power is when the WHY is so clear that anyone in the organization can use the celery test to make decisions.
That's how you scale authenticity. People don't need to constantly ask the founder. They understand the filter.
Volkswagen trying to sell the Phaeton luxury car feels like a fail on the celery test.
Big time. VW's WHY was the people's car, affordability, reliability. The Phaeton was technically excellent, but it just didn't fit. It felt inconsistent with the VW brand's core belief. People didn't buy it.
Whereas Toyota and Honda launching Lexus and Acura,
They understood. Toyota and Honda already symbolized efficiency and value, their WHY. To sell luxury cars, a different watt, they needed new symbols, new brands that could embody maybe similar underlying company values, but operate credibly in that different space. They passed the celery test by creating new filters for those brands.
so chasing opportunities that don't align with your WHY, even if tempting, dilutes the core message.
It erodes trust and the ability to inspire over time. Consistency mattered.
Okay, this all hinges on knowing your WHY. How do you find it? Sinek says it's not about inventing something.
No, it's a discovery process. You look backward, not forward. Your WHY comes from your past, your upbringing, the experiences that shaped you. It's usually formed by your late teens or early 20s.
It's already there, you just need to uncover it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
For an organization, it typically traces back to the founder's original passion, the belief that sparked the whole thing.
Sinek even shares his own story of feeling like a fraud in his business.
Right. He was focusing on what he did, consulting,
Huh.
and how to be used different, working hard but feeling empty. It wasn't until he studied why companies like Apple or Southwest were so inspiring that he discovered the golden circle pattern and began to uncover his own WHY.
He also tells the story of Ben, the disabled runner.
Yeah, the guy who always finishes last, struggles, falls, gets up. People don't cheer him because he's the best. They cheer him because he competes against himself. He embodies perseverance. People are drawn to that struggle. They want to help him, run alongside him.
And the connection to business.
When companies just focus on beating the competition, being faster, cheaper, having more features, the Watho game, it's hard for people to feel truly connected or want to help. But when a company competes against itself, driven by its WHY to constantly improve, to achieve its own vision.
People are inspired. They want to be part of that journey, like with Ben.
Exactly. Great organizations keep their WHY clear and focus on being better today than yesterday, measuring themselves against their own potential, not just the competition.
This leads to one last important distinction Sinek makes: achievement versus success. They sound similar, but he sees them differently.
Very differently. Achievement is hitting a target. It's tangible, measurable. Reaching a goal, making X amount of money, getting that promotion, buying the yacht.
It's about getting the what you were aiming for.
Right. Success, on the other hand, is a feeling. It's a state of being. Intangible. You don't achieve success in the same way. You feel successful.
And where does that feeling come from?
Sinek argues it comes when you're pursuing your WHY, when your journey aligns with your deepest purpose. Achievement comes from pursuing what you want. Success comes when you know why you want it.
So you can achieve a lot, make the money, get the status, but still feel empty or unsuccessful if it wasn't connected to your WHY.
Absolutely. We see it all the time. People reach its summit and think, is this it? The yacht achievement doesn't automatically buy the feeling of success if the journey wasn't meaningful.
But organizations with a clear WHY can help people feel successful in their work, not just hit targets.
Because people feel like they belong, like their work contributes to something bigger, something they believe in. That fosters passion, fulfillment, a sense of success beyond just the paycheck or the completed task. Sinek talks about entrepreneurs missing the passion of the early days when they were driven purely by their WHY before maybe the split occurred and focus shifted just to the what's.
So it's that alignment, what you do, driven by why you do it. That's where the feeling of success lives.
Beautifully put. It's the integration of the tangible and the intangible.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. The core message of start with why. It really boils down to understanding that foundational purpose, doesn't it?
It really does. Know your bubby way, your purpose, cause, or belief deeply.
Then live it through your HLBUs, your values, your principles, the disciplined actions you take.
And make sure your what's, everything you produce, say, and do, are consistent, authentic proof of that WHY.
It sounds simple, but the implications are huge. For individuals, for companies.
Huge. It's the key to genuinely inspiring people, not just motivating them short term. It's how you build deep trust, fierce loyalty.
How you attract people, employees, customers, partners who inherently believe what you believe. They find you.
And that leads to more sustainable, lasting success. It fuels innovation because you're driven by purpose, not just reacting. It builds resilience to face challenges.
Because ultimately, it's the WHY that connects us on a human level.
People connect with why you do things. Give them a WHY to believe in, and they'll pour their hearts into helping you bring it to life.
So a question for everyone listening: what's your WHY? What really drives you deep down?
And are your actions, your HOWs and what's, a true reflection of that belief? Are they consistent?
And here's a final thought to chew on. What if the real game isn't about beating others, but about beating who you were yesterday?
What would change if you woke up each day focused on improving, guided by your deepest WHY, serving something bigger than yourself?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Start With Why.
Yeah, hope it gave you some valuable insights.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.